Good morning, Frankie. How is oneself?
Yeah, very good. Quite hot and bothered, but I'm all right, mate.
Have you recovered from our 4.5 marathon on the watch along on Sunday
Just,
morning?
just about. It was a long one. It was very unexpected, I have to say. It went on and on and on, but I still quite enjoyed it in the end. But yeah, very tired after sort of getting off at 4 in the morning.
Yeah, took it out of me on Sunday. I struggled all of Sunday, but I had a good kip Sunday night. I'm recovered. I'm back on it. I'm feeling good, and yeah, I enjoyed it as well. And I enjoyed people sticking around with us throughout 4.5 hours. People stuck with us, talking about music, crisps, and a little bit about West Ham as well when we had to. Frankie, we like to use this podcast to discuss the smaller topics to some extent, but actually there could be a bigger one here. Amanda Staveley. Now, some people might be putting 2 and 2 together and coming up with 4, and others might be coming up with 10. We don't know, but we're going to discuss that hypothetically anyway. For those unaware, she was involved in the takeover of Newcastle United. She was the face of Newcastle United, but she had a stake of just around about 5% in Newcastle, and she's now sold it, which was always part of the plan. The plan was she would always exit Newcastle, and Piff and Rubens now own 100% between them. This has meant that Amanda Staveley has a fund of up to 500 million, and she's on the lookout for a new project. Now, she has been linked to Spurs, but she's also been linked to West Ham a little bit as well. Frankie, I'm just going to flip it over to you and see what you think of these rumours.
Well, I guess I should get the main point out of the way, which is, do I think there's any serious interest, and do I think she'd have any desire in wanting to come to West Ham United? And unfortunately, I don't think there's any little bit of chance that she would want to join the project at West Ham, or even potentially look at a buyout situation. So yeah, it's a shame, because I do think she's fantastic.
Let me pick you up on that. Sorry, what makes you think she wouldn't come to West Ham?
I don't. I shall tell you why. Because it seems to me as though she's always somebody who likes to be involved with alternative parties, and I think if it involved the current people at West Ham, I don't think she could be involved with them. Simple as that. I don't think she could, even if it was for a small period of time. I don't think they're the type of people she can work alongside, and that kind of goes on to the point that why I like her so much is because she is the polar opposite of what's at our club currently. Couldn't be any more different. It would be a massive clash. And I just for that reason. But then in saying that, I mean, a lot of, Newcastle fans and Mike Ashley and those sorts of situations, they didn't love Mike Ashley. I actually really liked Mike Ashley. I think he's an excellent businessman. I don't think he's a very good football owner, but I actually think he's a very good businessman. And I think there was more chance that she would work around Mike Ashley than there would be she would around our current board.
Yeah, I kind of get that, actually. I find myself agreeing in regards to Karen Brady. She's the issue here. I think Sullivan maybe should be able to work around him to some extent. I think Sullivan has showed just sometimes he's okay to take a backward seat. And what he has shown for years now at West Ham is he's happy to give the operations of the football club that perhaps don't involve the playing squad to Karen Brady, and she's been able to crack on with things which have annoyed the fans sometimes. It's helped the club sometimes, whatever. But she's had a lot of control at West Ham United. So I think Sullivan is proving that he's willing to let somebody else do the business side of it. But I agree with you. I can't see her being able to work alongside Karen Brady, because Amanda is a little bit. She's very hands-on, a bit of a control freak, which I understand, and it makes sense, especially if you're going to be investing that much money. But I think it would put Karen Brady's nose out of joint. That would be the only thing. I think she would have to be removed before Amanda could possibly come in. I've got a quote here. Well, we've got 2 quotes today. We've got one from The Athletic. Well, it's from Amanda via The Athletic. And we've got one from Johnny from Newcastle Fan TV. Frankie's got a voice note from him, which we're going to play you in a couple of minutes' time, getting his thoughts on Amanda at Newcastle. And just Amanda in general, I guess. And it's very promising. But what she said, and this is in The Athletic, Amanda had said Mehrdad, which is her husband, who was involved in the fund at Newcastle. So her and her husband are business partners in that sense. Mehrdad and I are keen to be hands-on. We're hardworking people. I love to be very busy and to engage. I love football. Very sadly, we have to move on to other projects, and that might involve us taking a stake in another club or buying another club, and that's difficult, but it's possible. And she just goes on and says she doesn't know what the future holds, but she's now a Newcastle fan, and she's almost like a Yorkshire Geordie, and she's always going to love Newcastle, and she's going to go back, etc. Perhaps interestingly, I think this is maybe where people are putting two and two together, if that's not enough, is that she's working with Rothschild and basically as an advisor to Spurs involved there. And we know that Vanessa Gold is trying to sell 25% of West Ham via Rothschilds. And I appreciate it's a huge company. It's not like one guy knows the same information. But there's a little bit of a common ground there that Amanda has 500 million, wants to get involved in a project, is using Rothschild. Vanessa Gold wants to sell 25% of West Ham United and is using Rothschild. So I think I understand where people are putting two and two together. Are you hopeful? I know you don't think it could happen, but would you like to see it happen?
I would love it to happen. Absolutely love it. I think if people don't know the backstory of Amanda Staveley, she is a British businesswoman. Just a really quick snapshot. She owned restaurants when she was 21. Incredibly hard-working woman. When she went to Newcastle at the beginning, and this is a really simplified version, but she basically was taking control of every part of that football club. She was in charge of the board of directorship. She was in charge of finances, cash management. She was in charge of player acquisition. She was in charge of fan engagement, absolutely everything. And she took to fan engagement just brilliantly. She was absolutely fantastic. She literally went in there for a fan base that were totally dejected, removed, almost like we are, feeling like their club had almost died. That's how Newcastle fans felt. Their club had, when we say sometimes, it's not West Ham United anymore, and we have those people singing, you sold your soul. Newcastle felt almost exactly the same. And she came in and very, very quickly got every single fan back on board. She listened to what they wanted. She listened to what they wanted from a match day experience, what songs should be played, what banners should be shown, basically everything to do with a match day experience. She listened to that, and she then very, very quickly actually started to apply a lot of those things that the fans wanted, which was brilliant. A lot of people at the top of places in business and positions and everything else can all talk a good game. She actually was very quick at implementing what they wanted, which I think was absolutely brilliant. She's actually got a brain disease, which causes her to want to continue to work because she doesn't want her brain to slow down. So she very much wants to stay active. She wants to stay on the ball. She feels like it's the great way of dealing with the condition that she's got. She's just an admirable woman. You just look at her and you just go, she's just fantastic. You have to love her. Polar opposite of Karen Brady, who's got arrogance, who, can just be totally elitist, looks down upon you. She actually wants to go and stand in the pub and have a pint with you. She actually said that in an interview in the Middle East. She was doing like her life from where she was as a kid to owning football and being involved in football. And she actually come out and commented in Saudi Arabia about how when she owned a restaurant and she was plucking chickens, it set her in good stead that during COVID, when staff weren't turning up for work, she could get in there and teach people how to pour the perfect pint. And the whole place went silent because obviously there's no alcohol out there. And they was a bit like, oh, that's a funny thing to say out here. But that's who she is. She's very down to earth. She's very humble. But she's also just a fantastic, fantastic businesswoman. Just somebody I look up to and just think, yeah, she's brilliant.
What a fantastic summary that was, Frankie. Thank you very much. I'll be honest with you, I don't know much about her pre-Newcastle. Outside of Newcastle, I don't know much about her. She comes across very well in the Newcastle documentary. And I think one thing that she impressed me was getting the takeover over the line, working with the Premier League, because that wouldn't have been an easy transaction to do for obvious reasons. And there was huge delays with the takeover, again, for obvious reasons. But Amanda was the one that got that done, got that deal done. Karen Brady's gone out to the Middle East to look for investment and come back empty-handed. Amanda's gone and got the wealthiest fund to come and invest in Newcastle United. So the success is different. And when you were talking about engaging with fans, I'm aware of War Flags, which is a Newcastle United fans fund. It's funded by Newcastle United fans. It's run by Newcastle United fans. And they basically get given the keys to St James's Park to do what they want. So that's why when on the Champions League nights, you've seen them have these big flags, they have big mosaics. It's funded by fans. And the fans create it, design it, buy it, implement it. They go into the stadium, they put it in place. And they've definitely done that engagement level part there. Now, obviously, West Ham have tried to do their own things. Sometimes the club do it. In terms of engaging with the fans to get their input is pretty non-existent, really, at West Ham. So I could relate to it to some extent when you were speaking. Anyway, enough from me, Frankie. For the next couple of minutes, you're waiting to hear from Johnny from Newcastle United Fans TV. This is what he's got to say about Amanda.
Amanda Staveley's legacy at Newcastle United was the fact that she managed to get Mike Ashley out of Newcastle United, and that's probably one of the biggest things that Newcastle United fans will be forever indebted, because we had no hope, we had no chance of moving on forward with this football club. But Amanda Staveley was persistent. She was after the club for so many years and finally got it over the line with obviously help from PIF and the Reuben brothers, which obviously caused a lot of controversy, but she was the face of the takeover. She really was. She was the one that would speak to the media. She would be the one that would make the decisions on the ground. And she was always that beacon of light, because she was very a motherly type figure, in the sense that she could speak to anybody, whether it be a 45-year-old bloke, a young child watching the women's game, for example. She had that bond with the supporters, and the supporters appreciated it. She was very, very good at speaking to the fans. She didn't twist anything. She didn't have to do too much in terms of getting the fans on side. She was honest about what she wanted to do with the football club, and that's continued with other members of the consortiums that are leading Newcastle United and the main people behind the scenes. But she is certainly somebody that I was very sad to see the back of. She just ran out of money, unfortunately, in the sense that she couldn't really fund the club, and it was probably the right time for PIF and the Reubens, who are obviously a lot more financially wealthier than Amanda and Mehrdad as well, her husband. So she is someone that I think if she was to go to any other football club, she would change it pretty quickly. But I think she would get the fans to be on board pretty quickly as well. I think she would try and get the fans to help as much as possible in terms of getting whatever football club back to where they want to be. So, yeah, I think it can only be good if Amanda Staveley is still in football. Just slightly disappointed that it's not with Newcastle United, but she will be, I think, forever indebted for what she's done, as I mentioned at the beginning, by getting Mike Ashley out of Newcastle United. And Newcastle United are now a team that are fighting for Champions League places. They're fighting for trophies. That wasn't going to happen under Mike Ashley. So, yeah, Amanda Staveley deserves a lot of credit for what she's done at Newcastle United.
A ringing endorsement, Frankie. You can't really get much more praise than that from somebody that has been a fan of the club for, what's she been there, 3 years now, just under 3 years she's been at Newcastle United for. Don't think you could get much more praise.
No, I mean, he talks about Mission Mike Ashley. We need Mission Sullivan. It would be amazing if she could achieve what she did with getting rid of, their ownership that they were very unhappy with, and then just going for a very, very fast transformation from 0 to 100 very quickly. And I just think it's so impressive what she did. Just having people, when do you hear this day and age football fans think so well of owners and people who are being involved in football clubs? Not only that, but connections in the Middle East and everything else. I am not the massive fan of selling out our entire sport to the Middle East, I have to say. But when things are moving that way, if there's anybody who you kind of would want to seem to set up, and she talks very much about how Newcastle's now in good hands. I think that's really important. And to me, while she's definitely involved for commercial reasons, she's definitely involved to make money, There's absolutely no question that. Let's not get it wrong. I'm not sitting here thinking she does this for fun. She doesn't.
Yeah.
She does it for financial reasons. But I do think that she has a heart in there from the way she comes across, the things that she does, and been proven that I think she really does care. I think she would set you up, and she probably wouldn't be the person long term. But she certainly could be that person who ruffles some feathers, makes something happen that allows us to move forward. And at the moment, we're very stagnant. We're stuck. We seem like I think a lot of people felt like it would only be a couple more years of this ownership, and that's all we would have to endure. And then other people start to think, actually, no, they could really just stick around for the massive long term, which I don't think anybody particularly wants. So, I think she could be the person who comes in and might be the one who can achieve what we all, well, I say what we all, I can't speak for everyone, but certainly what myself and the people around me would hope.
Yeah, and this is where you've got to put your personal. I think sometimes when you think about West Ham topics and stuff, whether it be transfers, player selection, sponsorship deals and stuff, you have to put your own personal opinion to one side, and it can be difficult. And this is one of those things where I think you've just got to put what you want for West Ham. So as Frankie said, they're not really keen on Middle East investment, but just park that for 1 second. The West Ham have tried to get investment from the Middle East. Karen Brady has gone out there to get it. So that's the club's ambition, that's the club's hope, but we failed. But Amanda could possibly make that happen. She's shown she's got good contacts out there and she can get things done. And I know she's linked to Spurs, but for the reasons we said as to why she possibly wouldn't come to West Ham, that's why I can't see her go to Spurs. You know, working with Daniel Levy, he's got to be one of the toughest people to work with in the Premier League. So for her to go there and have a minority stake, I'm not buying into that one personally. But like I said, at the start, it's maybe 2 and 2 and coming up with 10, but we know she's got 500 million, a fund of up to 500 million to spend. We know there's 25% of West Ham United up for sale at the minute. And the club ain't valued at 2 billion, so she wouldn't even need to use the entire fund in order to obtain that 25%. I don't know what the club's valued at. It was when Kretinsky purchased his share. It worked out about 800 million, I think, or just below 800 million as to what the value of the club was. If she can afford it, she can afford that 25%. And that's quite a chunky stake in a Premier League club to obtain 25%. And then that's where that might just mean that, you know, Trip Smith is wanting out at West Ham. Possibly his stakes available to purchase as well. If Kretinsky, probably not, but if Kretinsky decides, you know, because he's an investor as well, like you said about Amanda, she's only in it to make money. Doesn't mean she doesn't love football or she can't do good for your club. At the end of the day, she just wants to turn a profit on her investment. Exactly what Kretinsky did when he purchased it. Would he then look to potentially give up some of his shares to Amanda or somebody that she brings in? We don't know. Obviously, the elephant in the room is David Sullivan. But yeah, I'm not getting excited because these things are incredibly difficult to happen and they don't happen very often. But when I saw the rumour, I didn't dismiss it entirely because I thought sometimes things just make sense and there's a little bit of logic behind this one. So Amanda to West Ham, unlikely. Maybe watch this space though. Anyway, Frankie, I'd like to go back a couple of days to early Sunday hours when we got beat by Wolves. What was your takeaway from the friendly defeat?
Well, I don't know whether I was delusional because the time of the morning and my eyes were glazing over and I was switching off. It was difficult to take it all in, to be honest. But you know, we stayed up a long time to see some hope, to see some glimmers of what we are to expect with the forthcoming season, and it didn't really excite me very much at the moment. If anything, what it proved is we're a long way from being where we need to be on that first kickoff, and I think it's probably made me slightly more. I've been very patient with regards to the transfer window. I've been very patient with regards to just everything at the moment. I felt like it was all in good hands, and I thought, look, we've had the Euros, we've had international football, we've had Copa America. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt, and you know, let's not panic and let's see what happens. now I'm getting a little bit more twitchy. I'm not panicking yet. I'm certainly far from it. I think business can happen very quickly now. Everyone's sort of coming back from holiday. I think now's the time where I want to see things start to move forward. I want to see us linked with more. I want to see more stories. I want to see more players getting close to getting over the line. But things like the Wan-Bissaka situation and things like that, I think you've just got to go and get those over the line now. And if they're not happening, and it's not going to happen, we've got to start to move on to opportunities that are there. Because for me, I think there were some glaring holes that still need to be filled. I think we all knew what they were and that we needed new bodies in certain positions. I think we just looked if that one of my biggest concerns was the first half formation and system was like a regurgitation of David Moyes last season. Similar formation, similar setup, whatever, lone striker up front who happened to be Danny Ings, not getting anywhere near the football. That's just like, I thought we'd moved on from that. I couldn't believe what I was watching, to be perfectly honest. And, you know, we all say it's just a friendly, you know, I can't read too much into it. Well, you can, that's a formation that we'd used last season. We thought we'd seen the back of it. And then I was watching it again at 3 o'clock in the morning, and it really wasn't it's hard enough to watch that at 3 o'clock on it was Sunday because we obviously had European football, but it would be hard to watch that 3 o'clock on a Saturday, let alone at 3 o'clock in the morning. So, yeah, second half, we went back to what we'd been playing in the previous friendlies, which was that sort of more back three, try and get a bit wider, try and get a bit higher up the pitch. And for the first 5 minutes, it looked good. And then Wolves sort of went back into shape, sort of compensated for some of the things that we'd changed, and then just took control over the game again. And one thing that I said during the stream was that Wolves started with one team and they looked like a team who all knew what their jobs were, what their roles were and where they should be and when. They then changed the entire 11 and you couldn't tell that it was a new team that was on the pitch. It actually looked like you was just watching the same team again. So it was literally just, we can change every single player we got and they will still know their job. They'll still know their role. They'll still know the system and what we expect of them. And at the very bare minimum, I think that's what we need to get to. I don't think we had that last season. I think a lot of our players looked a little bit clueless at times where they should be, what we should be doing in this situation and that situation. And Wolves had it absolutely nailed. And Gary O'Neill's done a fantastic job there, to be honest. And it's just the basics of football that hopefully Lopetegui will get his influence on them. I'm just slightly worried that I'm not even 100% sure at the moment we've got the personnel for Lopetegui to get what he needs out of this team. So, yeah, getting twitchy. Want to see some transfers coming in.
I know people only say it's pre-season friendly and stuff like that. However, it didn't stop Lopetegui. He was clearly unhappy after the game. He don't know if you've seen it, but I wasn't aware of it. Gonzo told me, I went and looked, but he got the Moyes interview after the game, you know. Do you know how last season we'd get beaten? The interviewers say, well, boss, we played well in the first half, but just couldn't quite score. He did that to Lopetegui. There's bits in the first half. You could see glimpses of like what you're trying to do, and you basically said, no, you didn't. That wasn't good enough. Like what we did in the first half was, you didn't. I'm not happy with that. You completely battered down the West Ham employee to some extent. I said, no, don't you dare try and make this look or sound positive. I ain't having that. I have to say, I was quite pleased to hear Lopetegui speak like that, and it was quite honest, but I think sometimes you need that. I think sometimes you can be a little bit too positive, and it might be a different story behind closed doors. You know, sometimes the manager might say, we're a bit unlucky today. You might go in and get them all the ball again. We don't know. But I just think to hear Lopetegui say he wasn't happy with that performance against Wolves, I was quite encouraged by that statement, actually, because I came away from it quite a bit disappointed. I think there was a lot of poor performances individually, as a team collectively, and I thought Wolves were by far the better team. And I know it's only friendly, but it wasn't even close as far as I was concerned. It was very comfortable for them. And my biggest frustration was we made a lot of changes at half time. Wolves continued playing the same team early into the second half. And for that by the 50th minute or whatever, before Wolves made their wholesale changes, I thought they looked like the fitter team, although the players had been playing for 45 minutes on that heavy, wet pitch, and we'd only just made subs. We just brought fresh legs on, and 5 minutes later, I'm like, oh, why are we looking a little bit slower and not as sharp as that Wolves side? So, yeah, I came away a little bit disappointed by what I've seen against Wolves, but I too am getting a bit twitchy. I'm still confident we sign Wan-Bissaka, Frankie. I don't know why. I just can't feel it. It just makes sense. I'm still confident we sign him. I think there's a little part of me thinking, if it is only over a few million we're haggling, I'm thinking, at what point do we say, right, let's just pay it, which isn't what we want to do, but are we that skint that we've got to really squeeze every million out? And I know it adds up over, if you do 5 signings, you save a couple million on each one, that's 10 million saved and stuff. But yeah, I just feel I'm getting a bit desperate now. I've been quite calm. I still am, because we're still in July. But there's a part of me thinking, right, come on, it feels like 2 weeks now. There's been little progress made, and consistently bidding for Duran, although Villa aren't budging on their valuation of him. We keep offering less and less. And so, go away. It got to the point at the weekend, the rumours on Villa side of things, where they were going to tell us to either pay up or go away and stop bothering them. Because look, stop it. You've made numerous bids now. We told you what we want. You're still not matching it. So either match it or just do one and stop wasting everyone's time to some extent. So I'm hoping we can, next time I speak to you, Frankie, we'll have 1 or 2 signings in the bag. But good news, Edson Alvarez is in America now. He's met up with the team. Paqueta and Bowen are expected to join this week. So hopefully we'll see a bit more of an improvement against Crystal Palace this weekend.
Yeah, like I say, individuals, we know we've had a few youngsters in there. And it's not been anywhere near our full team yet. And actually, the biggest positives have come from them youngsters, to be honest.
I better say, they've been some of our better players.
They have. They've looked energetic. They're not just people who are running around like headless chickens. When I say energetic, what I mean is that they're doing the right things. They're looking like they're in the right positions. They're influencing the game. So, no, they've been the biggest positive, really. Like I say, it's just for me, just showcasing again what we already know. We know that Cresswell can't really be a left back anymore, and that he's going to struggle with the pace of the game and getting up and down. We know Soufal's limitations, we know Souček's limitations, all of these things that we already know. So hopefully that game would have hit home to Lopetegui that, while a lot of work needs to be done, sometimes, no matter what you do, some of these people aren't going to be good enough, and we can't rely on that. And I hope that he went straight after that game, banging on Tim Steight's door and saying what's going on, what's happening, because this ain't what I need. And we also know that he's a man who can get frustrated quite quickly if he doesn't have what's needed and the right personnel. So we don't want to upset him. We don't want to get off on the wrong foot. And if we kept giving him them personnel and saying, all right, that's what you got to work with. I'd be very nervous at kicking off without any new bodies coming in, that's for sure. So we say we're getting twitchy. I'm still pretty calm. I'm still thinking like they know what they're doing. I still believe in Steiten. I do. I still think he's got it all under control. Let's hope. And I might come across right naive there come the end of the transfer window, but I'm sticking with it, rightly or wrongly.
The thing is that you're entitled to change your mind at the end of the transfer window if we don't sign anyone. You're more than.
But I've been the one who's been critical before of people when we've had a little bit of dealings early on in the transfer windows before, and everyone starts going, "Oh, it's a 10-10 transfer window," and I'm like, "No, it's not a 10-10 transfer window, not even close to it." And I was always of this opinion that actually, if we're all sitting there on these social media and we're all just going, yeah, that's all right, we bought in Guilherme, we bought in Kilman for quite a bit of money, if we bring in Wan-Bissaka and then we bring in Duran, that's absolutely fine, that's a 10-10 transfer window, fantastic. I think I've been critical sometimes that we do need to put pressure on, and sometimes we do need to show our discontent and start making a bit of noise and saying, look, we know we need and we've needed certain players in certain positions for a very, very long time. And let's let the club know that, we believe that there should be some more coming through the door. So Yeah, I'm not going to keep this positive frame of mind and messaging for too much longer. They've probably got another week and a half, 2 weeks before I start to go on the turn and start banging on about how we need some bodies in.
Let's just say week and a half then. What do you want to see done? You don't have
Well,
to name players. You can just say positions if you want. But in the next 10 days, say, what are you hoping to see happen?
yeah, well, I think this right back, we see how he wanted to play in the second half. We've always said this right back is going to be really key and really important. Emerson we can get away with on the left, but I'm not sure Soufal is the right man for the way Lopetegui wants to play. So this right back situation has got to be solved within that time frame. You know, we've messed around a little bit with this Mazraoui. We've been knocking on the door for Wan-Bissaka for so long. I mean, I hear that he doesn't want to come to West Ham, and then other reports say sometimes actually we're getting close to agreeing personal terms. Well, I don't know which one it is, but he's either got to come or not. It could be both.
He maybe doesn't want to come, but he's been persuaded.
And maybe, and this is it. I'm not naive to say that football transfers are black and white. I think sometimes we don't really fully understand what goes on in a football transfer. There's so much that can happen. There's so much that can go on, and it isn't straightforward. And I do understand that. So, yeah, I know there's a lot that's got to happen. I know a lot's got to be agreed, and there's a lot of things involved. But at the end of the day, we saw a match in a friendly where there was a lot of imbalance and there were certain positions that massively need addressing. The right back's one of them. Let's get it sorted. If we get that sorted, it will give me a little bit more time to think, right, the other positions will come after and it will all be fine. If we don't see that right back solved within the next week and a half, then I'll start to get a little bit more agitated.
Yeah, it's right back and striker for me. I think they've had, I know you're unsure that we'll sign a striker, but they've had long enough to decide who they're going to go for. And if it is Johan, fine, but they've known for long enough it's 40 million. So it's getting to the point where it's a bit, there's no excuses here. And we're being linked to other strikers, and I don't think they're not adding up for me. I don't believe them. I don't believe the rumours that we're interested in one or two. And there might be an element of don't want to believe it involved in that, but it just doesn't really makes sense to me. So I remain unconvinced by the alternative targets as being put out there at the minute. I think it is just Duran, and the alternative targets are to maybe scare Aston Villa a little bit because they want rid of him. There's only really one team in for him. You know, Saudi came in, Duran said, no, thank you, I want to go to West Ham. So I think maybe if he puts in an official transfer request rather than just doing the cross hammers on Instagram, that might help force the hand a little bit. But striker and right back in the next 10 days for me, and then that gives us 20 odd days in August to fine-tune the squad. So the left winger, the centre midfielder, potentially another centre back, but also start moving on one or two players that we've decided, right, we don't need them now, we don't want them now. The youngsters, we've had a look at them, these are the ones we're going to keep, these are the ones we're going to put out on loan, and these are the ones that are going to stay in under 21. So it gives you the second half of August just to tweak things, and then start looking for, you know, maybe a loan move or something. I wouldn't be surprised if we go after Reece Nelson on loan. My prediction is we go after Reece Nelson on loan with an option to buy at the end of the season, and it'd be a clever way of getting a left winger in, somebody that can play out on that side, have a look at him, and it doesn't really touch the transfer budget. Maybe Jota Silva comes in from Portugal. Maybe that's who we go for in the end, because, again, just lack of people going after him. His price was 17.5 million. It's now down to 10 million, apparently. So I think once we've got the striker and right back, we might see movement on that sort of left-sided player, potentially other positions as well. So, yeah, fingers crossed, Frankie. Next time I speak to you, we've beaten Crystal Palace. Certain players have had a really good game. We're seeing a bit more of what Lopetegui wants to do. And maybe we'll have an Adam Wan-Bissaka at the club as well. That'd be good.
Let's hope so. My friend who's a Man United fan, it's actually his favourite player. So he'll be gutted if he leaves. I said to him, Adam Wan-Bissaka, how can he be your favourite player? I don't understand it whatsoever. I've dug him out about it. But he likes him. He says how good he is. Look, I've been very critical because I watched him when we played Man United and beat them 2-0 at home last season. I was sitting literally in the front row and watched him, and he didn't impress me, put it that way. But
I like him.
If it gets done, I'll get on board if he arrives, and we'll see.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please do drop a like on it by clicking thumbs up. It helps out the video, helps out the channel, keeps Frankie coming back, which I appreciate. Subscribe to Hamish Chat and Frankie. I shall catch up with you next week.
See you later.